It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 337. Tonight I'm joined by Emo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Mm-hmm.
Grace.
Mm-hmm.
Kodra?
Hmm?
Tam?
Yeah.
Dalen? Yeah, I agree. Man.
I was wondering if your voice could go higher.
Yeah, no, it really couldn't. Like, it would hurt if it went higher. But that was the thing that was absolutely happening, and I realized the mistake of that move. It's been a week. Like, I don't know what it was about this week, but this has been a week. Like, it's been a sequence of weeks, but, like, this was very much a week.
Lots of stuff going on at work for me has led me a little bit hollowed out.
Yeah, mine has mostly been work-related because... So we were on furlough for most of a year, which had us down to 36 hours. And once that was officially off at the beginning of the year, it's just kind of been escalating. Everything that didn't happen while we were furloughed is now getting thrown on the pile, and everyone wants everything now. So, yeah. But I'm glad it's the weekend. I'm glad to be sitting down to record. In the weird events that happened this week, Outriders patched a demo.
Well,
that's
it's
weird.
A demo that then can keep running indefinitely. So they need to make sure it keeps up with, it doesn't have exploits in it, I guess.
Is this
part?
Is this a demo or a new way of doing a soft launch?
I mean,
it's an actual demo because it's got a cap and you can't play past a certain point.
Yeah,
but it's also kind of a soft launch because it's going to be the same infrastructure going forward. And so at day one, most people are already going to be up to a certain point. Yeah,
so in the demo, you can level your world to world rating 5 and level your character to 7. And you can roll multiple characters and level them all to 7. And then there's like a cap on how much resources you can keep. But like the thing is, people are going to figure out a way to efficiently farm things and then abuse the shit out of it. And that's kind of happened in the demo.
Sure, but if the efficiently farm things is playing the game, then that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so what was happening is there was a mission that you could run where there were multiple segments, and I talked about this when we last talked about it. Like, this game is really cool in that it has these sequences of action and then a pause, and then it takes some action by you to move to the next frenetic action section. And there was a mission where one of these had a break like that, and you were supposed to like clear a barrier, and then you would get a bunch more stuff. And in that little group, a captain spawned along with like 2 sharpshooters. And the captain was a champion in, Diablo terms, and the sharpshooters were like elites, and they all had higher than average drop rates for stuff. So people were running in, killing the captain, killing the 2 sharpshooters, stopping doing anything, let everything else kill them, respawning at the checkpoint, which was the barricade, running in, killing the captain, killing the sharpshooters, dying over and over and over and over. And I guess there's 11 legendaries in the game right now, and people have been farming all 11 of them. Which, like, normally that wouldn't mean anything, but, like, Outriders apparently has this crazy crafting system that allows you to swap. It's a lot like Diablo Enchanting, to where you can, like, swap an item, and essentially, like, put an enchant on an item. So once you've farmed a legendary, you can deconstruct that legendary and learn its special ability and then just put it on other items. So in theory, like, that is a big jump start if you've got like 11 of these tier 3 abilities that you can throw on gear. I've heard it's cost prohibitive to do this thing, but like still, you're going to have to do this at some point to get those abilities. But apparently, like this week, they patched that to where there was another exploit where folks would load into a checkpoint in a mission, and then the game did not intend you to go backwards in the mission, but they would go backwards and farm 3 chests, because basically going backwards, there was nothing left. Like in the checkpoint, everything had been killed, but for whatever reason, those chests respawned. So they would just farm the chests over and over and over. So they patched that out. They patched a couple other exploity behaviors, but then they turned around and increased the drop rate for legendaries off of running missions. So in theory, to maybe reward people for actually playing the game as intended. I still don't have a legendary. I've played a couple missions over. I was trying to at least get to world rank 5, so that I could start the game at that point. Because it takes, after you've leveled to 7, it takes quite a bit further to get to world rank 4 and world rank 5. It seems like it's going to be kind of like the Diablo Torment system.
Yeah, and I'm not terribly interested in rushing it. Like,
yeah,
it goes up to 20, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it just increases the difficulty and increases the drop rates. And it seems like greens drop quite a bit in 5. So, I mean, I'm fine with that. That's pretty cool.
Is there anything that does like difficulty scale with the number of players in your squad?
I do not know that. I have not grouped with anybody yet.
The tutorial told me yes.
Okay.
Oh, does it? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, this is another one of those games that has a group size of 3, which is awkward. But like, I feel like 3 is just an awkward group size.
What was the group size in Mass Effect 3?
4.
4?
Yeah. 4 seems like a pretty standard group size.
I mean, honestly, at this point in my life, 3 seems like a really good size where I might actually be able to find 2 other real friends and play together at the same time.
Yeah. Time zones and everything have been a challenge. I have cemented my opinion that I am playing Devastator. It is my jam.
I've just started, probably to nobody's surprise, I'm playing the class that is at range. And has healing things, although I don't know if I actually care about that aspect of it very much, but
honestly, that ability seems more useful for its ability to 100% heal your turrets than to heal allies.
Yeah.
I have yet to unlock the healing ability.
I don't think you can in the demo.
Okay. I was going to say, yes, I am also playing Technomancer to the surprise of no one because turrets.
I've heard the turrets are really useful.
They're super useful, mostly for distracting people and flushing people out so that you can snipe them.
Sniping's real fun.
Sniping is very fun.
Like, the weapons are actually really good. Like, I've liked a lot of different weapons that I've tried. I mean, like, surprising to no one, I tend to lean towards shotguns and submachine guns and auto rifles, but, I mean, they all feel pretty good. Like, I tried a light machine gun, and it was a thing. I mean, it's like a harder hitting assault rifle with a really slow reload, which is fine.
I do take some issue with your statement of this isn't a cover shooter, because cover is definitely a thing in this game.
I mean, I feel like it is a poor cover shooter, and they did call that out in their patch notes that they plan on fixing some of that once they've launched. That they couldn't do this in the demo, but they're wanting to work on the usefulness of cover. I
feel like, except for boss fights, cover is incredibly useful for me as a Technomancer.
You also have a turret that is distracting your targets, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also also grenades and various other things. Like, cover is incredibly valuable for being able to fight defensively while at range.
Yeah, so like, as a class without a turret, Like the NPCs basically lock onto you instantly and just grenade the hell out of you behind cover.
Well, that's also true for me, but that just means you move to another piece of cover. Like, this is a game where cover is important, but you don't get to stay in cover permanently. You are constantly moving from emplacement to emplacement.
I think the way I put it last week was taking cover is important, but staying in cover is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of cover shooters, like you spend your entire time behind cover, like Division, really, if you're not in cover, you're doing it wrong.
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely not that, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, like I can run around and run and gun and be happy, and just so long as I stay moving. Basically, staying still, if you play that way, is real bad.
I will say that it feels like any of the spellcasters do awful things to your ability to be in cover, because you don't get much warning for when they're going to do something to the area.
This is true on the player side too. Like the Pyromancer first ability goes directly through cover.
Yeah.
Well, and my spikes that I throw out on the ground, like the earthquake that shoots up spikes, basically it goes underneath cover. So like if you're behind a wall, I just throw it down on the ground and it shoots up behind the wall.
So one of the things that has really kind of put a damper on my playthrough is just how unrelentingly dark and bleak and nihilistic some of this game's tone and story are.
So I have not gotten super far yet.
Sure.
But I kind of appreciate it in some ways, and the thing I most appreciate so far is that the player character seems to actually have a personality.
Yes.
Which is not something that I am necessarily used to in this genre of game. And I'm definitely enjoying that piece of it. Like, this world is screwed up and kind of horrible, and the player character is absolutely responding to that.
Yeah.
in a specific way. I don't know. I definitely like that compared to other similar games where I feel like the world is really screwed up and dark, and I'm just a faceless gun.
I mean, it is kind of an awful world where basically, like, people who do have power are abusing the hell out of it. And in theory, you're someone with power that, at least so far, isn't abusing the hell out of it. We'll see if it stays that way. But, like, there's a lot of just stupidity. Like, there's this one mission that you play through, and, like, everything's going well, and you think you're going to save the day, and then just at the very end, things go south. And it's like, really? Really? Like, I thought it was going to be okay. I thought I was going to, like, do the good thing. But then stuff goes bad. There's really only, I think, 4 side quests that you could play. And then, I don't know, 5 or 6 missions in total.
Yeah.
It's real short.
The first side quest definitely was one of those things where I was like, oh, I guess I didn't realize how much I didn't need this in a game. Like, I would say the end of that first side quest had my stomach actively churning, and I was like, I need to leave. I need to not be thinking about this.
The shopkeeper one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I guess it didn't affect me that much.
I don't know if you looked at what the room you were in was.
No, apparently I didn't.
Yeah. I don't know. It was environmental storytelling I did not need or want.
Okay, that has been the one I've been repeating. I guess I have to pay closer attention to the room, because, at that point, the objective is over. So I usually go loot the chest and walk away.
I mean, the last room is basically the guy's sex dungeon.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah, no, I did not even pay attention to that. He was not a good dude.
No.
He was very much not a good dude. And maybe they're just trying to make you feel better about the conclusion of that.
I guess.
It now officially feels worse that I get a permanent discount for not being horrible.
Apparently, I did select the correct thing because apparently the female voice actor is much better. Is my understanding.
Yeah, I've tried both, and I like her way more.
The female had the haircut I wanted, and so that's the model I chose.
I've played some of both, and I'm mostly fine with either.
I hope that this story goes somewhere. Like, I kind of feel like they are in an awkward space between, like... So I think, Tam, you were the one saying that it's like they're trying to do either, like, 40K grim and serious, or they're trying to do, like, dark humor. And I feel like they're somewhere in an awkward space between those two.
Well, 40K is dark humor. It just, I feel like it's a good comparison because 40K is trying to be satire. Like it is a parody of, darkity dark. But like it's one of those Poe's Law things where it becomes hard to tell it apart from actually trying to be super edgy and dark all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like this has the same thing where it is self-aware. It's like surprisingly self-aware. So I don't necessarily think that it's I don't think that it's just I don't think it's doing the unrelentingly dark thing without realizing how unrelentingly dark it is. Like it's trying to inject humor into that. But it's also like I can't tell if it's quite going for comedy or quite going for like this is a setup for something bigger. And it could really be either one.
I'm thinking it's a setup for something bigger, just because there's enough footage that I've seen of other areas of this planet that make me think that there's got to be something bigger out there than just this horrible town. Do
you not get to see any of that by the end of the demo?
No.
Okay.
The demo basically ends with you venturing out beyond town.
Okay.
Like that's what you're supposed to be doing at the end of the demo, but like instead of actually starting that mission, it basically like credit rolls and gives you an ad to buy the game.
Okay. I mean, that's at least a little interesting, like venturing out beyond this town. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably gonna I'm kind of in the I'll wait and see on this one a little bit. But what was it? The intro was definitely one of those things where I was like actually really into it, and I really liked the characters, and I especially liked the character I knew was about to die, and shocking to no one, he was about to die.
What? Shock.
I literally said it's like, oh man, I really love this guy. Too bad he's about to die. And then 5 minutes later, but then you take all of those characters that they really did almost up level of job getting you invested in them and getting you to enjoy them, and then you wake up and those characters are gone, and miserable shadows of themselves exist.
I mean, some stuff happened.
I get that some stuff happened, but you replaced a bunch of characters I cared about with a bunch of characters I don't.
I mean, to me, they're basically kind of telling the narrative that they were trying to run away from the problems that they had created, and they brought the problems that they had created with them. I don't know the full story of what was wrong with the Earth that caused it to cease to exist in some manner. And I don't know if they're going to tell us during the course of the game, because I'm curious. Because there's a prologue at the beginning of the game that is vastly different than the rest of the game. And during that prologue, it basically says that the signal from Earth ended 15 years into their flight. So, like, in theory, there is no planet to go back to.
Yeah.
But I am curious as to what actually happened. But, you know, it is a tale of humans being humans, which are oftentimes horrible. I mean, it is kind of bleak. It's
very bleak. I do like that you have at least some of a voice. Although it feels like sometimes it feels like you only get to express it in like some cutscenes. But when you do get to express it, boy, it does feel satisfying.
I mean, it feels like the character is consistently incredulous. Like the male character at least reminds me of Dante from Clerks. And basically most of the lines are delivered with the same kind of, I'm not even supposed to be here today.
I feel like the female character briefly dips into the, did you guys learn absolutely nothing, you absolute morons? And I do appreciate that stance, because that's kind of how I feel.
I don't know. For me, like, I'm going to play the hell out of this because the run and gun gameplay is fun. It seems to have Diablo 3-ish build capabilities. They've thought about a lot of the downfalls that have hit other ones of this, as far as like the need to be able to modify crappy loot that you happen to get. So I think it's going to set up to be interesting. I don't know where it's going because they have claimed this is not a live service game. So, like, I don't know what that means. Like, it is very much an online game. So I don't know how they're planning on doing long-term monetization, but, like...
I mean, they might not be.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's what it sounds like, but I'm not sure if I believe that. I mean, they definitely seem to have their act together more than the other product offering from Square that is an online game.
I was going to say, it seems like they just want to convince you that this isn't Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, like, Avengers is just like, who knows what the hell's going on with that? I mean, like, that's a blurb that from this week is, like, they decided that the problem with Avengers was that you get too many abilities too fast. So they're just going to slow down the leveling curve.
Oh, no.
No, that's not it.
Didn't we just do this? Like, actually, no, Champions was probably long enough ago that nobody remembers it.
Yeah, no, it is. It is the Champions beginning. Mm-hmm. Like, it is exactly Champions. It is... Okay, so how long has Avengers been out? Like, a year at this point, maybe? A little less than a year? They're doing the first real content drop in Hawkeye soon-ish. The game still only has 4 villains that you can fight. 2 of which are actual villains, and 2 of which are just bullet spongy robots. There are still only 6 maps in all of Avengers, and everything is a version of that map. So, like, they're just trying to spread the butter on the toast way too thin by slowing down the leveling curve. And what makes this feel even more awful is progress does not carry over between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5.
Wow.
So, like, the people that have been loyal to the game are looking forward to or at least that's my understanding, are looking forward to the PlayStation 5 version for the next-gen consoles, and by the time they get their hands on it, it will have been, like, slowed down to a crawl to progress through the game.
Eesh.
So do like, the same content over and over and over again?
But do more of it, like way more of it.
Just way more. Just keep grinding it out.
Well, like, that was the problem is, like, they're literally, like, when I say there are 6 maps in the game, that's the truth. Like, there are 6 different tile sets in the entire game. And everything is a version of one of those maps. Like, the objectives may move, what you're fighting in any given location may change, but, like, there's 6 maps, 4 bosses, 2 of which are robots, 2 of which are actual villains.
Oof.
And so, like, do you randomly get a different enemy in those maps, or is that, like...
No, like, every mission is the same every time you run it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, like, I mean, I ground up Captain America, fully geared Captain America, ground up Thor, couldn't be bothered to gear it, started grinding up Ms. Marvel, and then like stopped halfway through because I didn't know why I was continuing. And that was a month into the game.
Yikes.
And now, like, I don't remember exactly when it released. I want to say it released August-ish of last year.
Yeah, I thought it was like that or like September.
Yeah, but also like maybe games don't all need to be live service games.
Oh no, it was earlier than that. It released in never mind. That gave me a movie. Ignore me. August 14th.
I was gonna say we've learned several games maybe shouldn't have been live services now.
And the problem is, like, I had this discussion on Twitter, and like what I was calling a live service game isn't what I guess people in general think of live service games, because people kept throwing me out MMOs. But like I was thinking of the games that have been the looter shooter live services. We're going to give you a 10-year long game. Destiny, Division, Anthem, Avengers, Godfall. That one was a stinker as well. Like, I'm not sure if any of them have really worked out right.
I mean, Destiny has definitely...
Destiny's the closest, but man, Destiny is a very uneven play experience. Like, there are times when Destiny is great. Like, right now, Destiny is pretty good. But, like, there are times when Destiny is horrible to play. And it's been a very uneven experience as to how enjoyable it is. And, it feels like they keep learning and unlearning things as they go. But, like, I'm not sure anyone has ever really nailed the release cadence. And, I mean, like, of that looter type game, probably Warframe is the one that comes the closest.
I mean, they're always releasing something.
Yeah.
It's also been around longer than all of those other games you said.
Right. I mean, like, really, it's kind of the thing that inspired a lot of other games, I think. Yeah, because, like, the looter shooter genre really probably began with Borderlands, which wasn't a live service game, but, like, was a game that everybody played over and over and over and over.
Warframe isn't really structured like Borderlands, though.
Yeah, that was the thing that I was thinking about is, like, if you want to make a long play game, a game where people are going to be in it for years, you need one of two things. You need either to not be content driven, which there's plenty of ways to do that. Minecraft has done this. Minecraft is not a content driven game. It's a systems driven game. Give people the opportunity.
To a lot of extent. So is Warframe, really.
Yeah, Warframe is very similar.
I'm not sure. How do you figure it's systems driven?
Because
Warframe has a ridiculous variety of weapons and builds and mods and...
I agree, but all of that is still technically content, right?
No,
I mean,
when I say
not in that sense.
Content,
no.
When I say content, I'm talking about story beats, new areas, narrative.
The places that you are doing the shooting and the things that you are shooting and the reasons that you are shooting.
I mean, it's also kind of content driven because they do keep introducing new versions of that. Maybe not.
It's true, they do.
Yeah.
But it's not, I guess it's not the only thing that game has going for it.
Yeah, and when I say driven, I really mean, like, the thing that is getting you to get in and play. What is it? Is it, I want to see the next piece of story? Or is it, I want to mess around with these systems? Because, like, Magic the Gathering has content. Magic the Gathering has a story. But it's not the thing that's bringing you back to the game all the time.
And I think maybe that's what these games have not been good at clarifying. Because when you tell me, here's going to be this epic 10-year long adventure, I think, oh, well, there's going to be a lot of story drops.
Well, and that's not what's happened. Like, these games aren't good at delivering story. And they don't necessarily have to be. You just need to have something. You need to have something that's like, hey, this is new enough and cool enough that I want to come back and try this game.
Yeah.
Diablo is not dropping new content every season, but it is changing stuff up enough to make you want to come back and play it.
Yeah.
You know, Warframe's actual story content is a snail's pace, but they're constantly releasing new weapons, new systemic mechanical pieces for you to mess around with. And I think that's the thing that's sort of missing from some of these, from like the Avengers, where like those systems aren't compelling enough. If your systems aren't compelling enough on their own to get you to keep coming back, then you're going to be in a pretty bad way.
Well, and the problem too is that, like, if you're not releasing content often enough, then it becomes real noticeable when you lay a stinker on the community, and it's 3-4 months until you replace it with something better.
Yeah.
And like, I've gone back to Dragalia Lost. Like, I think that's the cadence that games need if you're going to be a service game. And in that game, there was always either an event going on or one just about to start. Like, the lull periods between things happening were really short. And none of it was like the best content in the world, but like it was something new to get people back in and fiddling with it. And like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like a game that has nailed the content release schedule has been Elder Scrolls Online. They basically have a year-long cycle where they drop an expansion and then a bunch of small content patches throughout the year, roughly every 3 months. And there's like 4 of them a year. And like, there's been an excessive amount of stuff released for the game. I'm not even vaguely close to having been through all of it.
I mean, this also feels true for Guild Wars 2. Like, I've been playing that game quite a bit, and I'm still not caught up on story. But yeah, like,
and I think like at least I think it's the true in both those games, Elder Scrolls and Guild Wars 2. Like, there's a diversity in the amount of, or the types of content that's released, to where like you're not necessarily going to get 4 drops a year that are catered to your taste, but like there's something in each one of those drops that is of interest to most people. Like, one may be a raid drop, but like there's some other stuff going on in the world in correlation to it, or there may be an event that's happening, or like it's a dungeon patch, so there's new dungeons, but along with that, like the crafters get entirely new clothing styles that they can chase down on the market boards, or I mean, guild traders. So like there's enough of a variety going in every time something goes in that like there's something for everyone.
But notably also what you're indicating as this has good content cycle is things that are MMOs or more traditional MMOs.
And
right.
MMOs traditionally sacrifice fidelity for quantity. Like, MMOs have less fancy content than other games.
And I think what's made Destiny awkward is the way that their seasonal model works. They basically uproot a bunch of systems every season and replace them with brand new systems. And in doing so, like, it's either a good season or a bad season. Like, there's an unevenness to the quality of the content. And like right now, whatever the hell season we're in, I don't even remember the name of it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the season's called. It's a Cabal season, but like, it's a good season. Like the cadence of the seasonal content is really good. Like it has a good flow to it. Like, other seasons have just been horrible. Like they just did not feel good to play through, and they had like a bad assortment of weapons, and it felt awful. But like, when there's 3 months between these, and one is bad for the entire 3 months, it's kind of awkward to have to try and play through that.
I'm also kind of curious if one of the challenges we're having is the the looter shooter is a higher fidelity experience in some way, in a lot of ways, than a traditional MMO. Like, you're probably the overall shine and polish you have to put into the content you are making is going to be much more expensive than like an MMO zone. And this is me speculating. I don't actually know. I would probably want Tam to chime in on that, but like, is that just why we feel the content streams on these shooter games isn't really up to this par with like the content streams we see in MMOs?
Well, I think part of it too is like in most MMO content, other than like raid races, it is not competitive content. Whereas like in a shooter of any kind, it is by nature competitive content.
Is that going to be the case in like this game though? Like, is there even supposed to be a PvP in Outriders?
I don't think there is any kind of PvP in Outriders.
I still think the fidelity of the content might be higher, just because like the actions you need to be able to do in a shooter is higher. I'm actually curious. What's the feeling of the content stream in something like Division?
It's raid content and PvP content. Like that's really what gets put in every so often.
But does it come out like at a reasonable pace?
Not really. It's slow.
I don't think anybody like.
I don't think anybody's nailed the pace.
I think that's kind of the underlying problem with content driven games. And it's like, it's one of the reasons MMOs have suffered so significantly is that there's no like content is hard to make and not just hard to make in a like, oh, video games are hard, but hard to make in that it's expensive and time consuming. And even a game like World of Warcraft hasn't figured out how to release content at a pace that makes players happy.
Well, and the challenge that WoW's going through right now is they have released a expansion that like a lot of people don't like. And because of that, like that ship is really slow to turn. Like they've invested a lot of effort into this content that they have designed, and it is not landing well. But like, how do you right the ship at this point? Because there's a lot of investment in the plan that they were sticking to. And so do they just uproot the things that aren't feeling good right now and try and fix it? Or do you wait for the next expansion and hope that the players will come back? Because like that's kind of been the model with Bungie is they don't do a lot of mid-season fixing. They just try and learn from those lessons for the next season. But that ends up like leaving you with an entire season that feels bad and people walk away from. And right now, people are walking away from World of Warcraft because, the state of the game right now doesn't feel great.
Yeah. Well,
and I think the slower you release content, the worse that problem is.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I mean, a game like Genshin Impact, they have some sort of event or a new quest or something going on every couple of weeks. And it's not all super deep, and some of
they're
it
not all winners.
Right, like they may not all be winners, but there's always something new happening constantly. So like if you don't like this one, you might like the next one.
Yep.
And you don't have to wait 6 months for it.
It's easy to keep goodwill when there's something else just right around the corner. So like, okay, this one may not be for me. And it goes back to the whole like the release schedule with ESO. Like, okay, so if there's 4 content drops a year, if 2 of them aren't necessarily down your alley, then there's still 2 that are probably going to be down your alley. Like, so like that's a predictable schedule. And if something doesn't feel good, you can at least know there's going to be another one right around the corner. And, that's kind of been the one saving grace with Destiny is like, if a season doesn't feel good, chances are the next one will feel totally different. So maybe just disappear for 3 months, play something else.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's what FF14 has done, and they've been incredibly open about it. They're like, look, our content is going to happen when it happens. If you feel like you're bored waiting for it, play something else for a bit. Come back fresh. And it's definitely a healthier way to do it, but
like part of this I think may just be a marketing failure. Like from a marketing standpoint, we're not being upfront with the way these games are.
Well, I mean, it's also years of players who are like, I mean, it's what subscription services did, is they made every player think about how fast can I do this content? Because the speed at which I can do this content, the faster I do this content, the less I pay for it. And so it is important to me, like it is important as a player to efficiently burn through content.
Well, and even if that's not a factor, there's the factor that like there is a social pressure to be caught up.
Yeah.
So that you can function along with other players that are doing the thing at the same time.
Well, that's just a function of levels.
I mean, it's a function of anything. Like, I'm not caught up in the story, and I feel pressure to get caught up in the story in, like, Guild Wars 2.
Mm-hmm.
I do a little bit because I know there are some things I want, but I don't, like, that doesn't prevent me from playing with my friends in Guild Wars 2. Like, I am super far behind on story, and I'm not even the furthest far behind in our play group. And we can all still do like the cutting edge content together.
But is it confusing because you're not caught up on the story?
So the group content is kind of asymmetric to the story, is what I would say. There's some stuff that's confusing. Like, I'm exceptionally confused as to why I see Tam riding around on a dragon, because that doesn't make sense to me. But I've been told that it'll make sense eventually. But as far as, like, doing content, like group content, the group content is you go into a weird extra-dimensional space and do mini dungeons into weird alternate universes.
Well, admittedly, that's one of a couple of options for group content.
I guess that's true.
It's the one available to a group of 5 people that is actually good, because the other option is dungeons, and dungeons are not good.
Yeah. Well, dungeons are less awful than they used to be. But yeah, man. I guess it is true that strikes exist, and we haven't done those because people are not caught up. But
yeah, those are very story connected.
Yeah,
very, very story connected.
And so I have not done those, and so maybe I should feel more pressure to get caught up in the story, but I don't.
Well, like, hey, when it doesn't even matter, like, if the story factors in. Like, there are always moments in a game where, like, if I don't have the ability to keep all the plates spinning, I always feel like I am somehow being left behind in a game if I'm not keeping up on all the things. It's like if my professions aren't leveled, or if my character isn't leveled, or I don't have sufficient gear, or like, that's always a pressure regardless of levels.
I mean, nah, never mind. I'm not going to go down this route.
Yeah, we've had this conversation a lot, but there's lots of axes of progression, but feeling behind on any of them can just feel bad.
Yeah. I don't even know how we got to this point again from where we started.
Talking about MMO content.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, as before, I don't think anybody's quite figured out. I mean, MMOs haven't quite figured out how to keep people engaged and plugged in over a very long term. It's hard to do. Well, and to some extent, it's also like, do I really want a game that is releasing content such that I don't ever want to play anything else?
Yeah.
And I don't think I do. Like, I'm glad that there aren't games that are releasing content at a pace that it's just like, this is my forever game. I don't play anything else ever. Because that was definitely World of Warcraft for a while. And I missed out on so many games because all I played was World of Warcraft.
I mean, on the flip side of that, I was really grateful for it at the time because I couldn't afford to play all the games I might have wanted to play, but I could afford $15 a month.
Totally true.
But that is definitely not my current situation.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like that comes and goes over time as well, depending on how personally invested you are in a thing, as to whether or not you want more of it or you're okay with walking away from it.
Yeah.
That's true. Like I still play Final Fantasy 14 pretty much like constantly, but I have a group of like 4 friends, so we've like all been like doing the various grindy things together, like got our jobs to 80 and stuff like that. We've had specific goals and we've made the most of it, but it certainly does get pretty dry sometimes. But just having that close group of friends together doing it at least made it more enjoyable.
Yeah, where I've reached a point with Final Fantasy 14 where like I mostly just want to play the story.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, I find myself coming back and getting caught up on the story periodically, but like just not really having much attachment during the other times.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I do like when I do come back that there's this huge chunk of content that I can just burn through and experience all at once. And like honestly, that's kind of been my pattern with Elder Scrolls Online as well. Like I will every so often come back and play through an expansion or two's worth of content and then disappear again. Yeah.
And I think that when, you know, going back to like Destiny or similar games that don't quite hit that, where they're live service models that aren't quite hitting that good feel. I feel like there's that when I play a game like Ghost of Tsushima, for example, which could absolutely have positioned itself as a live service game. We're going to release new little drips and drabs there, new weapons, new tools, new whatever. But because it's this like very contained experience, it manages to just be a self-contained game. And like, yeah, I'll play it and finish it, and that's fine. Like I don't need every game to try to be a live service game. And I don't need, I don't think that it makes a game better to try to be a live service game in a lot of cases.
So the funny thing about that example, though, is after the fact, they've essentially patched in a way to play it like a live service game.
Which game?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Weird.
There's like a multiplayer functionality where like there's 4 roles that you can take on and like weird loot drops and bosses, and like there's absolutely a way to play it now in a similar vein to a Destiny style experience with 4 players.
Yeah, but they're not they're not
monetizing it like a live service game,
right?
But
exactly.
It's just this weird bonus content that they added in. And it's honestly like more akin to like Red Dead Redemption Online or Grand Theft Auto Online, with the difference is they're absolutely like monetizing the hell out of those. But like it's this weird add-on to the base game. And I'm not really sure how to swing this topic around, but like, we do have the topic of comfort games on our list. And a lot of times I return to these repeatable experiences because I find them comforting.
Yeah, that got on the list because I started replaying Okami this week, which is one of my favorite games ever. And it's very long. But it's familiar and it's still fun to actually play through. So I'm enjoying the experience of playing that game, even though it's not new to me or novel in any way.
That's me in Symphony of the Night. or Super Metroid. I've played through both those games numerous times.
Yeah, I have done this with Hollow Knight as well.
I mean, I've also done that with Mass Effect's trilogy. I've played through it a bunch of times. And partially because I know, like, this is going to be a significant chunk of time, but, like, it's a thing that's predictable and that, like, I know I will enjoy while I'm in the middle of it, but it's something slightly more sticky than just, like, playing an hour of a game that I remember fondly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of games like that for me.
Thief 2.
I don't replay Thief 2. I don't think I replayed Thief 2 in 15 years.
For me, it's mostly old adventure games.
I used to do this with Mega Man 8, but Mega Man 8 I can now beat in like 2 hours, so...
I don't have a lot of games like this. I used to replay Portal quite frequently. And lately, the only one that I've done it a lot with has been Night in the Woods. I've replayed many times. But that, to me, is more like rereading a book that I enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how it tends to work for me. That's why the games I've replayed the most are things like, Day of the Tentacle and Full Throttle and stuff like that. It's re-experiencing the story.
I find myself, like, replaying or re-leveling through MMO zones that I've enjoyed in the past. And, like, today I've been running around in Stros Makai and Betnik, and it was this whole, overwhelming feeling of coming home, since, like, that's kind of the first area that I was ever in Elder Scrolls Online. But, like, I've had the same experience, like, leveling back through Mulgore or, I'm trying to think of other zones that I really enjoyed. Grizzly Hills. I love doing Grizzly Hills. I mean, it's a predictable experience, and I'm just basically, like, revisiting it, but, like, I also know I'm going to enjoy the ride while it's there. It's kind of like watching a show I've already watched.
I think that's the thing I think that's what happens with me. Like, I very rarely rewatch a show or watch a movie more than once or read a book more than once. There are some games I've played more than once, but it's usually like, years and years between.
I mean, I very much use games and comics and television and movies as an anesthetic way of regulating my mood. And a lot of times there's a specific feeling that I feel like I need at a given time. And I will go draw back from my library of experiences and dust one of those off and revisit it. And I think that's why I replay so many games or revisit MMOs that I enjoyed in the past, is like there's a specific feeling that I want, and I go seek out the thing that gave me that feeling in the first place.
I'll admit also, since the pandemic, sometimes I'm a little overwhelmed and my brain doesn't really want to handle new things. So I appreciate comforting known experiences that I can revisit. They might not always be entirely pleasant, but they're known. I know what I need to do to get through them, and I know what I'm going to get out of them. And I'm not going to have any surprises, pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah, I guess that, I mean, that makes sense, because it's what I do. Like, for a while, when I was really stressed, what I was playing was One Step from Eden. Or, like, the rare times I play bullet hell shooters are when I'm very stressed. Like, my mental response to stress is to burn off that mental energy on something else. So I'll go, like, it sounds ridiculous to say I go play Bloodborne to relax, but like, and like, that's not really the kind of game I play to relax, but like, difficult, high speed technical games it's like, that's what gets my brain, like, that's what calms my brain down, because it's burning energy on something that isn't whatever I'm stressed about.
I was about to say, I think the only games that I replay frequently are games that I am trying to either achieve something new personally, so I've been playing a lot of Celeste recently, but that's me playing new, more difficult parts of Celeste, or games that I am like playing like the letter V 6 times, where I'm trying to actively achieve past what I have done in the past, or a game like Stellaris, where I am playing this game I have played 100 times, but in a slightly new and different way, but I still know mostly what I should expect from it. I don't find myself playing narrative games on repeat.
I'll play a narrative game. I'll play a narrative game again when it's been long. It's the same as when I read a book again. Like when it's been long enough that I don't remember it very well.
Yeah, whereas I think for me it's like revisiting an old friend.
Yeah, same. I mean, I have book series that are on, I don't know, entry numbers in the teens, and I'll still go back and reread the entire thing from scratch when a new one comes out, because even though I remember them, just because I want to revisit them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've read like every Discworld book at this point, but it's, you know, in the dozens.
It's kind of like, I don't know, wrapping yourself in a warm blanket.
Yeah.
And it's like, on some level, it's also, every time I experience it, I do get a slightly different experience, because like my specific mindset is slightly different every time I go into it.
Brains are fascinating.
It is really interesting, though, the way like people deal with things in vastly different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked briefly about nerds, but I think that it's been vaguely horrifying for like Kodra and Ash and a couple of our other friends to watch me burn off stress using nerds, because I just get very twitchy about it.
When your twitchiness stresses me out. That is the stressful way to play nerds. I have found a way to play nerds that doesn't stress me out. It's not that way.
And for me, it's the opposite of stressful. It's like, hey, I've got all of this brain energy. Here's a place for it.
Yeah, and I think that would just end up making me miserable. Like, I need a much more chill experience when I'm needing brain salve. Because like I've absolutely like logged into something and been just like, yeah, no, I can't today. That's too much. I think that's why like I so often return to Minecraft, is because like I can either play Minecraft as a super serious game, or I can play Minecraft as a super chill like building block game with like no rules and no expectations.
I think some of the good kind of mental chill out games for me are ones like puzzle games with music, like Luminous or something like Katamari, where I just kind of, my brain just kind of mostly switches off. I'm just kind of enjoying the music and the experience.
I do love Luminous.
Man, maybe you should try Solus 128.
Maybe I should.
It is a puzzle game with very cool music that is kind of like relevant to the puzzles you're solving.
Huh, okay.
In the sense that, like, on the beat is when the puzzles will emit new, like, motes of light.
Oh, interesting.
Which is relevant because a lot of the puzzles are about how do you get these motes of light to interact with each other.
I will go have a look at that.
It's a Metroidvania puzzler.
What? Wait.
Well, what's a Metroidvania?
Stop.
You solve puzzles.
Is this Pop-Tarts or a ravioli?
You solve puzzles to unlock new spaces to solve more puzzles. And sometimes you solve puzzles that allow you to backtrack and solve other puzzles.
Okay, so Baba is a Metroidvania?
Baba is you is usually one-screen puzzles.
Yeah, but you're learning like skills that you can use later to be more efficient in the earlier rounds.
No, that's totally true, but that's like you are actually having to solve puzzles, and then the way you solve puzzles, like it is a single contiguous map of puzzle, like that you are going from screen to screen, and one screen might interact with another screen.
Is Link to the Past a Metroidvania?
Yes. Most Zelda games are Metroidvanias, obviously.
I feel like Metroidvania is the wrong name for this thing. Like, I've thought that for a while, because in truth, I do think Zeldas represent, like, the Metroidvania genre better than a lot of games call themselves Metroidvanias.
I mean, right? Like, you are
unlock new abilities to open new spaces.
Unlock
is a thing that's existed since, Zelda 1.
Right, but, like, there's also a lot of Castlevania games that don't do this thing.
No, Symphony of the Night was the first one to do this thing.
No.
Yeah.
Simon's Quest.
Yeah.
No, sorry, you're right. I always forget Simon's Quest existed.
Simon's Quest was the first one to do this thing.
Everybody forgets Simon's Quest existed.
I loved Simon's Quest. Like, I was all about Simon's Quest. I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
And nobody likes Simon's Quest. That's a horrible night to have a curse.
But yes, like, it is a game where you're even backtracking because you see things in early zones that you can't get to, and you have to come back when you have the proper equipment. It's absolutely, like, it fits all of the things that we consider part of the Metroidvania formula.
Except for being a platformer.
Sure.
I think that's an important part.
But now we're experimenting with that same formula with all sorts of things now.
Yeah, but, like, I think when they weren't platformers in the past, those things were just called adventure games.
Yeah, that.
Which is not really a classification that people say anymore.
I mean, I guess this is how we got action-adventure game, the most meaningless genre title ever.
Yes.
Classification is really freaking hard.
Naming things is really, really hard. Let me tell you, I'm a programmer.
I mean, we have a whole massive, group of games classed as RPGs, a huge chunk of which don't involve any actual role-playing.
Well, like, the same is true.
They have stats and levels, and that's what
with
makes an
MMO.
RPG.
Like, I think what happens is games evolve past a definition, but we never get rid of the definition.
Because it's good marketing.
I mean, because, like, everything technically has RPG elements anymore. Sports games have deep RPG elements anymore.
Oh, man, that's why I liked sports games when I was younger. We would basically, instead of actually playing the games, we would just each draft teams and then simulate them and see how our drafted teams did in a season.
I tell you, like, I generally hate sports games, but there is one moment in my history where I enjoyed the hell out of sports games. And that was when I was a counselor at Scout Camp. We ended up having a Super Nintendo all summer long running an entire season of RBI baseball. And just whoever wasn't teaching the class at that time would play against the computer. And it was the weirdest and most enjoyable stupid sports thing I've ever done. And it was just like whoever happened to be around was playing this season. So it was totally random as to how well we did with our made up team, because, like, a bunch of different people played it, but it was entertaining. Like, it was super entertaining. I remember liking Baseball Stars as well, which I think was by SNK, because it had a really robust custom team element. Like, you could design your mascot and everything with your little pixel editor. I don't know. We've probably, in theory, hit time. Any final thoughts about anything we've talked about tonight?
Can't think of anything.
Alrighty then. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Come on, Ash. Like, we can't close without you doing it. Man. Okay, fine. See ya.